Hi, is my microphone working? 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 Okay. 1 second. We'll turn my desktop audio down so it doesn't echo. 1 sec, I'm doing a thing. Will you make a sign or something that says... Yeah. Okay. Alright. 1 second. Let me set this up a little bit. Not sure where a good place for my microphone is. Okay. Okay, so I'll just do like a... let me DM you to make sure you're here. Just so I don't start without you. Okay. Alright, so obviously let me preface this by saying I'm no expert on hair. But I do kind of feel like I do some things with hair. Oops. Sorry, I touched the mic. Again, sorry, the mic is really bad. So for hair, there's like, let me bring up a reference really quick. This one's okay. I'll put at the top of the head too. Okay, so for hair, typically, okay, I say these things and then actually let me draw one more thing. Well, maybe two. That's not the best profile, but we'll just pretend it's okay. Clean it up a bit. Put another ref. there's a few things to keep in mind when you're drawing hair. Let me turn off the stream on my computer so I can actually say what I'm saying. Typically, so there's like the hairline, which usually comes around like this. It goes a little bit down and then it goes a little further. Those are like the sideburns. That's like typical, I feel, give or take. And then as for where it ends, maybe I'll redo this next so it's a bit more normal. It was quick, sorry. So, sorry, someone's playing piano in the background. So typically, like, if you've ever given haircuts before, you there's some hair that grows like, so if we were seeing the inside of the ear, like behind the ear, I mean, it would typically start out, so with the ear, there's like that where it meets the head. The hair basically starts right at that bit, give or take. And then it comes around and ends at about right there, naturally. Some people like to cut it shorter, but that's about natural. So if like this was a bald head, but you could see like a little bit of the hair, you'd be like, this would be about the base, and then for this, just imagine that's the forehead or whatever. It's not exact, but so a thing to keep in mind when you're doing hair is number one, obviously, well, maybe not obvious, but the hairline, because a lot of, like, if you're doing a not comb over, but like, you know how it's like sort of like bangs or whatever, where it flips a little bit, you want to like keep in mind that there's a hairline right there, and hair goes up and around. And then for things like bangs, it's also good to keep in mind, because like when you draw bangs, like if it's middle bangs, you typically, they start from around there or up there. So like, so those are typically something, that's one of the good things to keep in mind, so hairline. But also you want to keep in mind how like the hairline falls. So if we look at this, so there's also, it depends sort of on how you part your hair, if a character has a cowlick, but typically, so if we're looking at this, if we're doing like a middle part, hair will fall like down there, which seems obvious, but you can sort of like do little arcs, because you have to also keep in mind that, like, if you're drawing from above, you do arcs, because you have to keep in mind that the head itself is curved. So if you're drawing something head on like this, or at least a little bit angled, because drawing head on is a nightmare for me, when you're drawing like down, it's good to like be kind of bumpy like that. And then in general, some things to keep in mind for art is you don't want like tangents. I can't remember what the best example was. So say like this is an arm and you wanted a shirt. So typically with a shirt you could just do like that, and that would be good, like give or take, you know, like it's very simplified. But some people just do like that, and you don't want like the lines to continue from that. And that's sort of the same with hair. You want some overlapping, and you don't want things to, you want it to show depth and like 3D and stuff like that. Sorry, I'm not the best at talking. But that, so with hair, if you had like, let me grab this real quick. Let me think of a good example. So like, if you had like a comb over like that or something, not comb over, I keep saying comb over, I'm not sure what the actual style is. A better thing to like add a little little bit of, I don't know what the right word would be, but like interest would be like to make it a little more bumpy. Of course, that can convey like straight hair a little better, but you still want to be careful. And like you wouldn't, like, I don't know if that part makes sense. That looks okay. Honestly, you just want to like keep in mind overlaps and stuff, and that's like a good thing for art. One second. Let me get back. Anyway, so in the case of drawing the back of the head, like in the piece that you are trying to do, let me draw a little back of the head. Wow, amazing. That looks just like the back of a head. I still don't know how to draw ears, so like take that part with a grain of salt. Sorry, it's so noisy in my house. Hopefully you can hear me alright. So for hair on the back of the head, it follows sort of the same rules. So if you're gonna, firstly, it's good to keep in mind like the parts. So say it's a middle part. On the back of the head, typically the part isn't noticeable by about here when the drop off happens, because on the top, like, let me think of a good way to explain this. At this point, all of the hair is just kind of mixing together and stuff, but at this point, up at the top, it can be more defined. That's not a good explanation. Hopefully it didn't confuse you more than it should have. So one thing to keep in mind of, let me grab the picture that you had. I don't know if I downloaded it. I think I just copied and pasted it. One second. So it seems like this is sort of pointless, I guess, to say, but I think it will help with like your hair drawing, I guess. Just because one thing that I noticed with yours is, let me duplicate this. Whoops. Is this an empty layer? Yes. Is with yours, at least for this part, if we draw the rest of the head, or not the rest of the head, but like the top of the head, we'd see like that going to like weird places. And while that technically can happen, I think that the hair on top would make it like it would be more defined from there. So if I'm gonna grab like you've done, let me see if I can grab just the hair part. But it's still gonna be white. I don't have a PNG. Hopefully you can hear me alright. Maybe I'll DM you and ask you. Oops. One second. Copy. Paste. Sorry, that was my sister. So one second, I'm gonna ask you if you can hear me all right. So, sorry, my family is distracting. So with this, I think something that would make it a little easier to like understand what the hair is going. Like, it seems like you sort of stop that right there. And while technically it could begin right there, because the hairline stops at about like, so it comes, it comes up around the ears like that. And then, depending on how people get their hair cut, if you have short hair, I guess. It will come around like this sort of. I didn't draw the profile very good because it kind of looks like the neck, but in real life, one sec. Let me fix that. That's the neck sort of begins like. I don't know how to describe it. It looks weird just because it looks like that's where it looks like the neck is coming up, or like it starts at the neck. Let me think of my head. Something to keep in mind is that the neck goes up further, like behind the head, and this would be like your jaw a little bit, kind of. It's hard to explain. If you feel your head, you should be able to tell what I'm talking about. So there's like the temples or whatever. I don't think those are temples. I don't remember what those are called. But like, it sort of is, and then that'd be like jaw or whatever. So that's something to keep in mind. So it looks a little weird, but this is like, it's about where your chin is. Oh wait, no, even with that, it's different. I don't know. Ignore that part, because it's not applicable to this next bit, since the hair is covering the hairline anyway. My main point from that is, where did my hair go? Anyway, my main point from that is, while this technically right there could happen, number one, it isn't as aesthetically pleasing, and then like number two, like hair over the top would probably cover it. So in this case, I would like make it come from like here, and depending on how curly you wanted it, just like something like that. And then this one sort of has the same principle. It looks like you're almost curling it, like you know how at like Dairy Queen or whatever, there's like the ice cream cones, and they like make a point to curl it. That was a tangent, but instead it's good to like leave a little bit of like, number one, you don't have to do the line all the way down, like your brain will fill in the gaps. It's a good exercise. We'll get into this in a little bit, but with the stiffness of the hair down there, it's a good exercise to do the whole line to see which strands would follow, because these aren't like, hair doesn't like go out like scales or whatever. It's like one huge strand. And then like, and you know how with basketballs, I don't pay attention to sports, so actually I don't think this is a basketball, but it's like, that's not a basketball. I don't remember how basketballs look. Okay, a pumpkin, if you draw like a pumpkin, it like, the more you get to the middle, the more straight it becomes, and then to the side, like that, you know, like that doesn't look like a pumpkin, but it's fine, you get the point. See how like, the more in the middle you get, because that's like from your perspective, the more wavy it gets on the side. So if we're looking at something right here, which is about in the middle, you could only do a little bit curvy, and like have it be straight, to show depth, to show that it's 3D. And then for this one, you could do like that, and then even that looks different. Like, you don't have to have that many lines or whatever, but it's like, to show depth or whatever, it helps a little more with that. I'll get rid of this layer. With this hair, one thing that, like, is good to keep in mind is, number one, so with something that weighs, hair has weight to it. So, let me think about how to explain it. So, you know, like with waterfalls, where it starts like this at the top, but then as it gets bigger, there's like mist and stuff. Hair's sort of like that a little bit, because at the top, that's where all of the hair is coming out from. So like, hopefully this is making sense. Like all of the hair, it's more dense up here, just because that's where it's coming out from. And so later when it has more like air and stuff, it sort of like fans out like a pear. So one thing with your drawing is it looks like it fans out at the top and then gets smaller, which when we're talking about individual strands, it makes sense because you lose hair as you go. So like it's big up here and then small down there, which makes sense because realistically there's like hair that's shorter or hair that's doing its own thing, and it seems like hair for the most part sort of groups together. Like you can sort of see the groups in this really blurry reference pic, or like you can see how you can see how like there's this strand and like this strand. I don't remember why I was saying that, but you get the idea. So for drawing hair in general, sorry, that was my phone. For drawing hair, one thing, and you also can keep in mind stylizing things. 1 second, I'm gonna reply back to this. So, you can keep in mind a few things. First of all, it doesn't have to be, number one, realistic. So you can see people who like, wah, and it still looks okay. Like, my first thought goes to that one girl from Mob Psycho who like punches people. Like this. Like obviously it's very stylized or whatever, but you can see like the principles where the hair fans out at the bottom. That typically, even if you don't think that's like the best example, just typically it seems like for the most part hair fans out a little bit, just because of the nature of like the more, like just think of the waterfall, I guess. So in this case, one thing that I think would help you right off the bat is if you started off like small and then went out. And if you want to do something curly, like wavy, it still can be, it still can happen. But you see how typically with the if you want wavy hair, you want it to, so each curve, like it seems like it's going inward. Like this is going inward before the other curve, or going at least straight at the very least. But each like little dip doesn't go behind like the last dip, I guess. Like it's a general idea. And then hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. So I would like, it seems like you're going for kind of a wavy look, sort of like wavy straight. So I would like, oh, and then things, also, one thing I was going to say, hair, like, there are things that, like, get, out like that, but typically near the ends, things just come in towards each other, like you could draw, like, if you're doing someone with super straight hair or whatever, something like that, instead of, like, everything going in like that. I'm running out of space to do actual stuff. Let me... this up a bit so I have more room. So, is this empty? Yes. So, for so if I was gonna make improvements, let me also do this guy, and I'm going to move the rocks down. So to start, I guess one of the things I would do to improve this, I'm gonna hide this because we don't need it anymore, is for the outline. Things can go in, by the way, but as a general, like, you kind of want it to flare out. So in the middle, if what you do for it is like going in the flare, it's probably fine. I know that's sort of contradicting what I said before. Sorry, let me get a good line. One good thing is you want to have one big straight line, because if you have multiple, you get little bumps like this. And one, it just looks cleaner and, like, I don't know. So we'll give this lady a middle part. So this is like the part. So it'll come up a bit, because hair doesn't just like follow it, it comes up a bit. You can see in this, it like goes up and then it goes down. So we'll just do like sort of wavy, not too wavy. That's like side part, I guess, but also things are rarely super symmetrical, so if you have like one side that has more weight to it, that's fine. It makes things more interesting. Usually I don't do wavy hair, so I gotta get used to the curves. And then, like I said with the basketball, or the pumpkin, I mean, like, you can see how I stop at about the middle and change direction, give or take. The bottom doesn't look too amazing. Some people go really extra with their bottoms. I typically just make it look kind of fuzzy. And then if we're thinking about the part, we do like curve too much. So I'm gonna go back. I probably should have done that on a different layer, and like modify it to be something natural. That's what I meant by like follow it all the way up. Let me fix that. So let me go back to this. So like, as you go down a bit, you can realize like some of the things that you want to fix a little bit. Sometimes, well, one sec. You can also tell if there are dips and stuff. But, you know, I don't know if you have ever done this before, but, like, if you draw a picture of, like, if you trace your hand and stuff, and then you, like, draw bumps, and you color the bumps, and you shade the side of the bumps and stuff, it makes it look 3D. The same can sort of apply, like, so, or, like, topographic maps or whatever. So if we look at this and think about this, it looks like right there, about from there, there's, like, a dip. And that's one way you can show wavy hair, and like show shape in general. It doesn't have to be just wavy. we'll deal with this in a sec. I'll talk about that in a sec. So, hopefully that bit makes sense. And you can also show dips and stuff. This is maybe a little too much. With when you shade and stuff. One sec. So like if you do like some layer like that when you're shading, it shows, and then you do like highlights on this bit, you can see like which parts are like pointing out a bit more. It's just it's something to think about with adding 3D aspects. So you can do it with both the lines and the shading. One sec. Sorry, I'll try to be quick. One of the things that I noticed is on your thing is there's like this sticking out, and it looks like both of them are coming up to meet it, like it's a mountain or like a hat. But in the advising that I sent, it wasn't very clear, and I don't know how to like justify this, but it just like intuitively seems like hair comes off at like the top of bumps or in the middle of bumps before, or like either at the start of a bump or in the middle of a bump, but not usually when it's going in. If it's going in towards the hair, then the bump would be like something like, then the strand, you just want to follow the lines. So like in this case, this has like that jut, and then however, I do think that if you wanted this to stay, like hypothetically, this could work if you had a line leading back up, like it's a different strand. That's like being crazy or wild or whatever. So to demonstrate that, sorry, my dog's barking again. Is this an empty layer? So first we'll do like one like that. I usually do that weird anime thing where it has like that, even though it's not as realistic. You also can have it be following the curve, so like this one's sort of coming back to the middle like that, and then these, and all of these are like at the top, right before it ends, or right, like, yeah, that's at the top too and stuff. However, if you wanted something to come out like this, what you could do is you could take this line, I'm going to move this on top of that, one sec, like it's a crazy strand or whatever, that's like not following the others. I don't know if, like, it's very mild crazy, but, and also a good tip for like aesthetic is you don't typically want to end your curve right there on the line. You typically want to overlap it instead. That's just one thing to keep in mind. It's not necessarily just a hair tip, it's like everything tip. And for these kind of things, you can also show like deviation in the middle of the hair with this, but if you're going to do it with one, it's probably a good idea to do a few of them just so it stays stylistic. One of the advice that I was saving is, so the reason why this looks a bit stiff to me is because if you follow it up to the top of the head, so hair typically works sort of like this. So like it starts small and small, gets big in the middle, like the strands, if there's more than one. And typically hair does not do like this, naturally, unless you like kink it with a straightener or something. Anyway, so the reason why this looks stiff is because you can follow this one, give or take, up to the top, and it's mostly fine. But then when you start this one, you have like this diamond shape that you don't really want. because in nature most things are round. Most rarely are things ever straight. So like if I was gonna make it a little more smooth, I would have it be like make it more round. So I would and also this goes too far in, because then when you look at this, it has to like do some crazy maneuvering, and then all of this has to do crazy maneuvering to adjust or whatever. Like so like for this I'd do like and there can be like some triangle shapes like this, like I almost just did that here, but that's just because like if it's overlapped, so like this is a triangle shape, but it's implied that this goes up rather than like this. Let me think. So yeah, you'd like want to follow the strands up, and there can be like stuff coming out from under, but typically also I'm not keeping in mind the part very well, but I don't know. Wait, how far back was that? I'll just keep that there. Okay. So, and then another stylistic thing that I like to do is sometimes these lines that are like this are kind of unsightly. Like it's a little bit too much. It doesn't really fit the rest of the hair. So sometimes the brain can like see the implied shape. Like the brain can see that this is implied. It'll fill in the gaps. And so if you like, as long as you get like the general, you don't even have to do the long thing. You can just do like what you think shows the shape a little bit more. Let me see if I can find an example of how well, one sec, I'll get to that in a minute. I don't know how long you want me to be doing this for. I'm not very good at getting to the point, sorry. And it doesn't have to look like this. Typically I don't start erasing. I just sort of like, but it's a good exercise to do the whole line and erase, just so you can see what the flow would be. So I guess one last main thing is you also want it to be sort of implied, like the curve is implied at the bottom, but you might not want to fill your whole drawing up with lines like this. Like there's a lot of long, like little pieces that would be there. Like you wouldn't want to do it like this. Some people do it and they do it well. It's a stylistic thing, I guess, technically. But if you want to imply that there is shape, you can do like little lines and then stop it pretty soon. And you can like meet them down there too. So, or like, like you could do that, or, like that. There's a few other little tricks you might want to keep track of, like this. You can do like that, where it shows like a strand of hair, which seems a little weird sometimes, and it's hard to pull off. I used to do it a lot, but I didn't do it very well. I don't know, like, that looks kind of like a squash, now that I think of it. However, so like, if you wanted a big gap right there, you could like do that, but you want it to like be, number one, to match the amount of hair until it gets smaller from the top. So like if you started it right here, well, if you started right there and like made the gap right there, then that would be a little weird unless you added more gaps like right there, just because that much hair going through there doesn't match like the amount of hair going through there. That's one thing to keep track of. Though sometimes you can do stylistic things. Sometimes I like do those little hangly bangly things, like when I draw bangs on characters, but it's like typically implied that it's getting broken up at the end, like that. I think that's about it. I'll DM you and ask you if you have any more questions. So if I was gonna make a key tips, I guess, to finish out, is number one, follow the flow. So, for example, like, if there's things at the bottom, you want to, like, follow it back to the top, and stuff like that. That wasn't very clear. Hopefully you get what I mean. And then two would be, sorry, I was listening to my stream and it was that weird thing. So I think two would be flare the hair. We're gonna go cute, except for I can't spell flare. Flare the hair. Hair typically starts out more or less like smaller on the top. Let me do that in green. Smaller on the top and then longer at the bottom. Flare the hair and then like a pear. And then for three, it probably would be long plus confident lines. It's not gonna be fun. Confident lines for each stroke. Like you've seen me when I'm drawing like this hair fanned out, you've seen me like Control Z a few times because I can't get like the flow that I like the best. That's perfectly fine to do that. But like if you're gonna do it like this, you kind of miss out on what the actual flow is. Even though that looks like decent, I guess it really is stylistic, honestly. But if you have like one long line, it's just more confident and I think it just looks cleaner, depending on what you do. Okay. Well, one sec, I'm gonna DM you. You want me to go over shading? Or at least how I shade. Some people say my art looks really like psychedelic, so you can take everything with a grain of salt. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Alrighty, it seems like that's about it. Hopefully I didn't